Hello, everybody, and welcome to lesson 2.2, which is on page 72 in your textbook. And this is on properties or rules. Property is another word for rules in algebra of parallel lines. So parallel lines are the ones that never cross. And we also have another thing going on. We have that transversal. Do you remember from last lesson? I'm going to urge you to watch the videos in sequence, not skip any, because then you'll miss a lot of information. So a transversal is the one that crosses two lines. But in this case, we have parallel lines. Last lesson, the lines could have gone anywhere. So I'm going to show you what the lines looked like in the last lesson. They could have been like this, which is not parallel. They intersect somewhere here, and then you had a transversal. So the difference in this lesson is that our lines are parallel. So there's a bunch of postulates and theorems, but overall, I want to put in this space what it's all about. So if the two lines, and I'm going to call them L and M. Remember, lines are named by lowercase letters, and usually in the last lesson they used L and M. So if the two lines are indeed parallel, then the transversal creates angle pairs. Remember how many there were? There were 8 angles and 4 angle pair, and if they pair up, there's 4 different, 8 angles, 4 angle pairs that are either equal. Those are the two choices. Either they're equal or their sum is 180. That's not a good. (180 degrees). And remember, that's called supplementary. So those are the two choices. Either the angle pairs are equal or their sum is 180. And I'll tell you one thing right now, there's only one angle pair whose sum is 180, and that's this one on this page. By the way, this is page 72. Same side interior angles are equal if the lines are parallel. Let's read what it says here. The special angle pairs formed by parallel lines and a transversal are congruent, supplementary, or both. The both is, maybe you can guess, when is it both? When are they congruent and supplementary? When they're both 90 degrees. So if the two angles are 90 degrees, they're supplementary because 90 plus 90 is 180, and they're congruent because each one is 90 degrees. So that's a special case. I didn't even think about it. But most of the time, they're either congruent or supplementary. The ones that are congruent are the same side. The ones that are supplementary are the same side interior angles. So in this postulate, I will just circle that. This is the information I want you to know. So same side interior are 4 and 5. Measure angle 4 plus measure angle 5 is 180. And then also 3 and 6. Measure angle 3 and measure angle 6 is 180. Those are on the same side. This is your transversal. This is line L and M. By the way, this arrow, these arrows mean lines are parallel. That shows that the lines are parallel. And remember the symbol for parallel if you write it, so you don't have to constantly write it, is those 2 bars. So we always want to look for those parallel, those arrows, okay? Okay, next page. On the top, if you know the measure of one of the angles, you can always find the measures of all 8 angles. That's the super important thing. So let's try that. Down here, identify all the numbered angles that are congruent, which is another word for equal measure to the given angle. Justify, oh, they only want the ones that are congruent. I solved the whole thing. So the given one is this angle 51 degrees. Notice it's an acute angle. Acute angles versus the others are called obtuse, and they're bigger. So sometimes you can, this is the only time I suggest you do that. Never do I say, look at it and see what it looks like. If it looks like it, it's probably it. But in this case, you can. Acute, this is the other acute. This one is obtuse. Notice it's bigger than 90. So that's definitely not 51. That's definitely a supplement to 51 because it forms a straight line. So those are the only 2 choices. I want to solve this whole puzzle here. They only want the angles that are congruent, but angle 5 is congruent, angle 7, angle 4, and that's it. So it's the angle 5, the angle 4, and the angle 7. These are congruent. Notice they're all acute. But I want to find all the angles, which you can easily. So 5 is 51, 4 is 51, 7 is 51. These are called vertical angles. That doesn't really have a theorem in this lesson, but they're also congruent. This angle is supplementary. Sum is 180. So you can say 180 minus 51 is 129. Degrees. So this one is 129. That makes this one 129. These are vertical angles. This is already worked out. This is 129. And this is 129. Now I have them all solved, and they're all either equal or they're supplementary. Like it's set up here, if you know one angle, you can find all 8. Okay, if the lines are parallel. If they're not, you cannot do that. Only if, there's a mathematical term, only if and only if. This is what you see in math books. So, and if you go to higher math, you'll see it. If and only if the lines are parallel. Does this hold true? If and only if in math books is IFFF. You see that in higher level math books, okay? So just throwing that in. Oh, I have low battery. Let me plug my computer in. Okay, so we're done with this question. And again, it only asks for which angles are congruent. So your answer would be these angles right here, but I finished it all because it's so, I like these kind of questions. It's there, to me, they're easy, but you might say, oh, not to me. On this one, we have the alternate interior angles, so I'm going to just circle that. If a transversal intersects 2 parallel lines, has to be parallel lines, alternate interior angles are congruent. So if L and M are parallel, Then angle 4 and 6, these are called alternate interior angles, are congruent, and 3 and 5 as well. Alternate on the opposite side of the transversal, inside between the two lines. They're congruent. Remember, there is only one pair where their sum is 180, and that's the previous page. Corresponding, same thing, they're congruent. So this is the transversal. If line L and M are parallel, then 1 and 5, these are corresponding. Remember, corresponding angles are on the same side of the transversal. One is outside, one is inside between the two lines. So those are all corresponding. There's always 4 pairs of corresponding. Okay, there's only two pairs of the other ones. So 1 and 5, 2 and 6, 3 and 7, 4 and 8 are congruent. 4 and 8, 3 and 7, yeah, and they're all obtuse. Notice they're all bigger than 90 degrees. Okay, so you look at that as well in this case. We're not doing that, so we're skipping to, I'm going to do, what are we doing here? Alternate. Where are we here? We're on page 76. I guess I skipped some things, but I don't think it's important. Last one, alternate exterior angles. 2 parallel lines, alternate exterior angles are also congruent. So if line L and M are parallel, and here are our arrows that indicate they're parallel, and they're cut by this transversal, then the alternate exterior, that means they're on the outside of the two lines, exterior on the alternate or opposite sides of the transversal, 1 and 7 and 2 and 8. 2 and 8 are acute, 1 and 7 are obtuse. If you know the measure of one of the angles, you can use the theorems and postulate to find the measure of all the other angles, and we already did that. On this page, all I'm going to do is the problems on the bottom, 77, page 77. Find measure angle 1 and angle 2. We got parallel lines. I verify with my little arrows. We have the two lines cut by a transversal. This is, these would be corresponding. Corresponding. This is called justifying. I'm writing why. Corresponding angles are congruent in this case because we have parallel lines. So measure angle 1 is equal to 75 degrees. And 2, what about 2? Well, that would be, okay, then if I have 1 is 75, I can say 2 is the supplement. So same side, interior angles are supplementary. I'll shorten it. So we have 180 minus 75 is 105 degrees equals measure angle 2. So this one here is 105. And this is 75. Notice supplementary sum is 180. Okay, over here, this is a scenario where you have two transversals. So I like to extend these lines so they look more like something I recognize. This line here is your transversal, And I want you to ignore this over here for now. Don't erase it yourself because you're going to need that later. I can erase, you might not. So I'm focusing. Those are the parallel lines. This is the transversal, like that. So this is same side interior. So this one is 120. Measure angle 1 is 120 because same side interior. Angles are supplementary. I'll shorten all that. So 120 plus 80 is wait, no, it's 100. 100 plus 80. There. That's better. Wonder if you guys caught that. So that would be this side, but now I'm going to go to that side. So this side right here is another transversal. So I'm going to extend this and extend that. So this is called transversal 1, transversal 2. So now I'm going to ignore this. Don't erase it. I'm going to erase it. Do not yourself. So that's in my mind gone. I can cover this part up. Look at that. These are called alternate interior angles. Alt, int, angles are congruent. That's an explanation. Alt, int, angles, alternate interior angles are congruent. Now I have to erase that again. Okay, so that's kind of when you have more than one thing going on, it gets confusing. And next page, page 78. Almost done, guys. This is another scenario here. Finding an angle measure. What are the values of X and Y? Anytime you see that, you know something like that is coming up. Set up an equation and solve. Anytime you see solve for X and Y. So again, I'm going to extend my lines, my two parallel lines to help me see this better. This is a transversal here. Call it transversal 1. I will cover this up, you don't, okay? Because you're not going to erase it. So we're looking at this part. These are two angles and that same side. Same side, interior, angles, sum is 180. So this is your clue how to set up your equation. So we have 2x plus the other angle. All we know it's 2x degrees, x minus 12 degrees. So you add those two expressions and the sum has to be 180. And then you combine like terms. And then you add 12. $192. And then you divide by 3. 3 goes into 19 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Bring down the 2. 3 goes into 12 4 times. So therefore, x is 64. So that's my x. So now let's look at the other one. Same thing, their same side interior angle, same concept. Their sum is also 180. They're not equal. You can tell by looking at it. This is the only time I say look at it and tell what it looks like. Obtuse, acute. They cannot be equal. Remember the two choices. Either they're equal or their sum is 180. in this case, you can tell they're not equal. The only time they're equal if we have a right perpendicular line, then you got equal angles because they're all 90 degrees, but not in this case. So there's my other equation. Oh, let's answer this. What is the relationship between the two angles on the left side? They're called same side, or let's just say sum is 180, make it short. So that's why we can say this. Okay, 3y plus 1y is 4y plus 20 is equal to 180. I'm going to skip a step and do this in my head. You can do that. Subtract 20, divide by 4. I'm going to skip some steps now. We're in math 2. Dividing by 4. Use a calculator if you have to. Now we got our x and y. It says, what are the values of x and y? What are the measures in B? We're going to take it a step further. Watch. I'm going to erase this. You don't have to. Because we need to know what the actual angles measure. So you have to plug your result in. X is 64. This is 2 times x. 2 times 64. X minus 12. X is 64. Just plug it in. 64 minus 12. Y is 40. 3 times y is 3 times 40. And again, y is 40. 40 plus 20. Whoops. Now don't hesitate to use your calculator. 40. Y is 40 plus 20. So this angle here is 2 times 64 is that's weird, 128. Something is, oh, I keep writing on my string here. So that angle is 128. 64 minus 12 is 52. 3 times 40 is 120. And 40 plus 20 is 60. So those are the degrees. And if you add them up, I'm going to give you a little prediction. This is coming another lesson another day, but since it's a 4-sided figure, the sum of all the interior angles will always be 360 degrees. So I'm going to add it up just to see if I'm right. 0, 0, 2, 8, 0, 1, 7, 9, 14, 16, 1, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. In any 4-sided closed figure, no matter what the shape is, the sum of all the interior angles is always 360 degrees. So if you know 3, you can find the 4th by subtracting the 3 from 360. So just to throw that in, that's not in this lesson, but I think it's interesting. So now we're done with this lesson and it's your turn. It's your turn on the homework page. So we're on page 79 in your textbook. Let me circle the homework questions. You try your best, okay? Exclude vertical, so we're not looking at vertical angles. Identify 4 pairs of congruent equal angles, not vertical ones. Identify 2 pairs of supplementary, sum is 180. Exclude linear pairs, exclude these that form a straight line. So vertical angles are the ones where they cross. Linear pairs, that 2 angles have the same vertex. This is called the vertex. And 11. So all of these use the same picture on the top here, okay? On the next page, (13). Okay, skip 14. 15. You got to set up an equation and solve, because it says find the value of the variable, which is p. So you got to figure out what p is. And on the next page, there's a mistake. You got to figure out which one is the mistake of these two equations. Okay, and why? Because it says explain. You have to kind of say why there, which one is the mistake and why. And this one is an interesting question here. So when you go camping in bear country, like in the Sierras or somewhere, you got to hang your food up at night. Otherwise bears come and eat it. So they destroy your camp. So people put it on a pulley that they put it way up high in the air so they can't reach it. So your job is to figure out what's the angle 1 here. What is this angle? Then this one is 60 degrees. The thing you have to assume is that the two trees where it's hanging on this pulley contraption are parallel. See those trees? If they don't grow straight up parallel, then you really can't solve it. But it kind of looks like they are, pretty much. So that's one thing they didn't mention in this. Campers often use a bear bag at night to avoid attracting animals to their food supply. In the bear bag system at the right, a camper pulls or releases one end of the rope. There's your food bag. To lower or make it higher, up and down, right? There's your food bag. Yum, food in there. Suppose a camper pulls the rope taut between the two, oh, here it is, parallel trees. As shown. I didn't see that. They are parallel. What is measure angle 1? So that's pretty easy. Here's your transversal. Right? Transversal. So easy. I see it. Okay. Now your job is to say how big it is. And then in B, you have to say, are these angles called alternate interior, same side interior, or is corresponding? That's the second part. And then I have a writing question. Why did I pick that? Are same side interior angles ever congruent? Explain. Think about it. I talked about that on the very first page. And that's it. You guys have good luck with this, please. Make sure you finish it before you come to class next week.